So now that Autumn Championships are totally over, I said I was going to make a new tier list because there is a relatively new patch that Autumn's was played on and that BCX is going to be played on. It's the patch that's going to be locked in for probably the rest of the year, if I had to guess. Before we get into it, though, I do want to make some notes. First of all, Loki is banned at BCX, so if you are going to BCX, make sure you're not dumping all your time into him, right? I did give him a ranking here in the tier list, but of course, you can kind of ignore it because he's not really competitively relevant. The second thing is that only my top 5s and top 10s are ordered. Top 5s for weapon and top 10s for legend, okay? The rest of it, as you'll see the descriptions on the left side, it is unordered within the tiers. I want to make that very, very known. I do want to add the disclaimer that everything on the tier list is of course competitively viable. Brawlhalla overall is pretty closely balanced. There are certain things that are going to be kind of outliers, of course. And also, I don't like doing the A+, A minus kind of tiers anymore because, of course, they're close, all right? I like to have a little bit of distinction between tiers. I like to have the S, A, B, and so forth. But just like last time, we're going to start with the 2v2 weapon tier list, going from the bottom to the top. First tier, bottom tier, great sword. This shouldn't be a surprise, even with the new combos that it has. I think you're going to be working extra hard to make this thing viable. The aerials are pretty good, and yeah, you could fly around and do that, but at that point, why not run around and maybe do something on like Axe, right? The aerials cover probably more, do around the same damage, if not more. I would have to guess, more force. These are some assumptions, but of course, easy to place greatsword at the bottom. Moving up shouldn't be a huge surprise. In, I guess, an actual tier, B tier, is guitars. Of course, you have spear. If you have spear, they're probably going to jump up to something like maybe even S, but that would be a stretch. You'd have to be a really, really good guitar player. It can be super annoying to have to deal with them, but at the end of the day, you're going to just be working harder than a lot of the other weapons. In A, I did put Scythe and Orb. They have some really good follow-up potential. The setups are also pretty nice. I just think that maybe right now, especially Scythe, it could be a little selfish. And again, you're going to have to work a little harder. Orb, there's potential there. It's just no one's really playing Orb in 2s. In the S tier, I even made a note. I think Sword stands out, right? I didn't put Sword in my top 5, but I think it's important to note that a Sword player can absolutely dominate a 2v2 game. We've been seeing that at least in North America with Java on Finn. Everyone's playing double gauntlets in NA, but this guy has made Finn work very, very well. I think, and he even says it himself, is because Sword has such good neutral. Also, it's easier to play, I think, in neutral as well, right? It definitely simplifies a lot of things. The rest of these shouldn't be that big of a surprise. Hammer, big damage. You can move very fluidly with bow. It can cover some great angles. You can actually get a lot of follow-ups and start combos with bow. Blaster's Cannon, they were actually in my top 4 last time, but they did get nerfed, so I decided to move them down. Then going from my 5th place to 1st place, in 5th we have Rocket Lance, 4th we have Axe, 3rd we have Spear, 2nd Gauntlets, and 1st is Battle Boots. I think going into BCX, double gauntlets will not be a shocker for majority of the teams. Godly Knees, they were playing mainly double gaunts. Godly did switch to Teros and Grands. And then Them Tankilo and Wes got 2nd on double Rayman. They did also play Tezca and, what was it, Olgrim a majority of the time, so fair there. And then in NA, I mean, it might not win, but it's hard to get a single game without running into double gauntlets. You just mash City. The setups are super easy. A common combo you see is like Enlight, D-Light there, and then a side air, right? And then you have like a sig that the person can do, and you kind of improv from there, I guess. But Battle Boots in the number 1 spot should not be a shocker. You can do D-Light and turn around into a Sair. That's crazy. That means someone could be... The best way to sum it up, actually, is pretty much better version of Scythe in 2s, I think. Maybe it doesn't have the total gimp potential, but dude, it has insane setups. Sidelight covering so much space. You also look at the legends who have battle boots, and they're not too shabby either when it comes to the SIGs and their offhand weapon. So yeah, battle boots at number 1 spot. I feel like that's pretty easy placement. Moving on to the 2v2 legend tier list, starting with D, Mako. Not really much to say. Greatsword, Katars, low defense. That's what really hurts her. In C tier, it's kind of the same story. You have characters like Thea, you have Ember, so like low defense, but then also you see some great sword characters here. Even Yumiko. Yumiko I find just kind of to be a weird pick when you have so many better choices for hammer and bow. C tier, you know, Thea maybe, if any of them could be moved up, I could see Thea, but really they're just kind of weird legends to pick here. In B tier, you're going to notice there is a lot of Katars and a lot of Scythe taking this up. Caspian is like a sleeper kind of pick here. Again, you have a teammate with Spear, dude. You run like Caspian Wu Shang. I actually think you could go pretty crazy. He has insane killing power, but at the end of the day, he is not going to be a very popular choice, which I don't know how much that should really hurt him, but it does. Scarlet is the only one that doesn't have Katars or Scythe here, I believe. Just a weird pick. Insane killing power, but I think you guys already know what Lance character is going to probably be in the top 10. And Scarlet, to me, is just such a worse version compared to him. So why would you ever, like, lay your hands on this legend? In A tier, I know I was saying Loki's banned, and I actually placed him in A tier. Realistically, right now, maybe he's even S tier because he's so broken with his signatures. And we'll talk about in ones even more, but kind of ignore the placement because he's really irrelevant, like I said. But all these characters are good. You could probably make them work pretty well, right? The SIGs are starting to get stronger. The stat lines might be pretty nice. But in A tier, things are more than above average here. They're probably pretty competitively viable, especially if you are skilled with them. S tier, crank it up a notch, all right? It's just even a step further. The stats are even better. The SIGs even hit harder or more spammable. Certain ones that I think people might see and be like, I don't know if I totally agree with this. That'd probably be Thatch, maybe Nash or Bodvar. I think Bodvar is a sleeper pick, same with Nash. And Thatch, dude, his SIGs hit so hard. Blasters, yes, they got nerfed. And his stats, the stats aren't the best thing ever. For defense is pretty trash. But, dude, he is an absolute Oppenheimer. He's a glass cannon, right? That's what he is. But there is a legend that does it better, I do think. Entering the top 10, the one that I think is better than Thatch, filling that glass cannon kind of role, is Jala. Yeah, it's just crazy SIGs. Stats are what holds her back, and which is why she's at 10th. Then we have Rayman, Val, Taros, Wu Shang, Onyx, Ulgrim, Zariel, Tezka, and then Kaya. So I'm not going to run through all of them. Some of these are pretty obvious. I want to talk about Kaya at number 1 and Zariel at number 3. I put Kaya at number 1 is because I think Kaya right now, 2 out of the 3 major regions in NA and in South America, actually even Europe, when you look at it, all of like the teams that have been winning basically, Acno Blaze, Acno, been on Kaya. Lores Kaina, Lores always has been on Kaya. And then you have Java Fakey, who you might say, oh, they're not the best team in North America. I don't care what you have to say. They won the past 2 tournaments. They won Summers and they just won Autumns. And he is on Kaya. And I think Kaya is just the best like support legend in the game. Just an absolute, it's like Hattori on steroids, in my opinion. I think Hattori is totally good. But if you're someone who plays Hattori, I think it's a very easy transition to make. Maybe not a super easy one because there is a dex difference on Spear in particular, which can feel kind of bad. But if you can pick up Bow and just start feeling good, dude, you can fly around, live forever, do Spear Nair, you know, play very evasively, and you have SIGs that can kill, so you're really good for follow-ups and stuff too. It's a really, really nice pairing to have pretty much with any other legend in the game. Then Zariel. Zariel is starting to make an insane rise. I wouldn't be surprised if this legend is seen more than like 2-3 times in the top 8 for 2s. Just SIG spam. This character has so many good SIGs, and the reason they're popular, yes, Cross did get nerfed, and I think people maybe would have looked at Zariel a bit anyways, but they decided to release basically Luke v2, except this time it was Deviljin on Zariel instead of Luke for Cross. I mean, it's just, if you've seen it in tournament, you know what I mean. Just SIG spam has meta weapons. The stats are like a Barraza kind of lineup. So you have like 7 defense, 5 speed if you're taking speed stance, 6 strength, 4 dex. It's just, everything is right for this character. And all of like the stars have aligned now to just have everyone at the top abuse this legend. If you're not playing like Kaya, probably. Moving on to the 1v1 weapon tier list, starting at the bottom, blasters. Simply, okay? They got nerfed. They're still going to be pretty good in 2s. Dude, if you're playing blasters right now in 1s, it's hard mode. The recovery not killing is pretty bad. It kills like 20 health later on like Brawlhaven used to kill at 120. Now a D-Light recovery kills at like 140. Might be like, what's the big deal? Pretty sure Boots recovery kills like the same, roughly the same, and it's way easier to just throw out. Also, the D-Light is way more committal than like a Boots D-Light. After that, there is a gap, because I truly think there's no reason to play this weapon right now. Moving up then to a B tier is Cannon and Hammer. These two, they can have success, kinda has made them look really good. Even like Snowy recently has been playing a lot more Zol, and I've seen him do pretty good with Cannon. But still, is it mainly the skill of the people we're seeing, or is it actually the weapon's capabilities? And I think a large part is the fact that these people are so good with their weapons that they're playing. Up another tier, there's a bit of debate as far as where Greatsword is going to be placed, but it is Greatsword Lance. I think Lance is super good. Maybe you could move it up, but I don't know. A was just a kind of a safe placement. Same thing for Greatsword. If anything, I feel like I'm not going to make too many people mad by having it in A. It's like, yeah, that's like roughly fair, I guess. I think Greatsword could arguably go in S. The weapon is just a nightmare to deal with, at least for me personally. But I understand that if you can kind of start getting a feel for the flow of the weapon, it probably is going to be a little easier to fight, as long as you're smart and maybe mixing things up and knowing where you can kind of abuse it. Going into S tier, we have Gauntlets, Axe, Boots, and Sword. None of these should be shockers. Axe, like 30 damage and interaction, right? Gauntlets, pretty easy reads. They're a great like secondary weapon to have. You have combos that you can kill with. You have fast individual moves. You have pretty simple reads to set up. So yeah, it's like, why not have that, you know, paired with whatever other weapon I'm comfortable with? It can be very nice. It does do kind of bad in my opinion compared to some of the stuff that is in the top 5. But aside from that, battle boots, I think boots are ridiculous. I don't know what they were thinking by, yeah, nerfing the Drift of Ser. Okay. They just straight up buffed boots recovery, so it kills quite a bit earlier than what it did previously. They just straight up buffed it, but it was disguised as like a rework. I don't like that at all. Maybe S is being a bit conservative. Maybe it could have slid in the top 5, but whatever, so be it. And then Sword as well. Sword just kind of does everything. If you're really good with it, then it's going to shine a lot. Java's a perfect example of that on Hattori. So maybe that's just him being good though. Top 5 going 5th to 1st. We have Bow, we have Orb, Guitars, Spear, and then Scythe. Simple as, I think Scythe is insane right now. It can do a lot. You don't have too many reliable kill setups, I would say. There's like certain situations off the wall. You can do a dare into a ground pound or dare into dare, but it's such a hard weapon to fight. I think it can do a lot of things well. I think the offstage can be crazy. The reads aren't that hard, and once you catch a dodge, you're going to be getting a lot of damage. However, at the end of the day, you do have to have a pretty good flow with the weapon. If you can't get anything started, it's going to probably feel like trash. Spear, on the other hand, I think this weapon is super easy when it comes to reads, okay? You do sidelight into Nair, right? You can do sidelight wait, see how they react, and you can cover a couple different things. It's just, you hit a sidelight, and then if you were on the receiving end of, you do a bad dodge, say you dodge down after a sidelight, you get hit by a sidelight, then D-Light, oh, hey, look, you're playing on Miami Dome. Let's get another D-Light in there. And that's not a really hard thing to learn. That's probably the most advanced thing a Spear player can do. And it's not even that difficult to become consistent hitting a triple D-Light. You can get some pretty early kills if you master that stuff. And also, it's just a lot of damage that you're going to be able to build up super quick. And not to mention, it has the range. The individual poke moves, stuff like Dare, stuff like Sair even, and Enlight, it can be hard to deal with, especially if you're trying to rush in. You have to play sometimes a little more reserved, especially if the Spear player is going to be a little defensive. Guitars, not going to go too in depth. I still think they're very strong. If you're not going to be playing Gauntlets, chances are you probably have a pair of guitars in your back pocket. That's always just generally how it's been, I think. Bow's been lurking in the top 5, so we're not going to touch on it too much. But Orb, however, Orb is slept on majorly. The reeds and like strings that you can set up, I think are very nice. You might be saying, oh, well, Orb struggles with killing. Okay, but I don't mind having to fall back on like an Orb Aerial, like an Orb Sair, or even an Orb like Dare, because it's very safe to throw out. Not to mention certain moves like Delight is very safe to just kind of do. You end up in the air if you whiff. You can get some strange combos off of it. You can get stuff like Delight Nair, Delight Sidelight. They also gave it Delight into a Chase Dodge Nair. I don't know how broken that is, but it's just, why did we add another combo to Orb? Like, I just wonder what was the necessity there, I guess. Orb has only gotten better recently. I just think people see it as maybe a bit of a boring weapon, so they don't play it. Moving on to 1v1 Legends, we are in C tier with Mako, Core, and Scarlet. It's sometimes hard to decide, okay, who is truly the worst of the worst, but I think it's pretty fair to say that there is zero reason to touch any of these characters. And I know that logic can be kind of applied, but I just see Core and I see him, oh, you're playing the game on hard mode. Just kind of like picking up blasters might be very hard. The Core is going to be losing like 95% of the matchups he's in, I'm pretty sure. Mako, I think the SIGs are honestly kind of mid. Stats are all right, and you're not going to have insanely reliable kill. Like, I shouldn't say they're not reliable. You have Qatar and Light Recovery, right? You're not going to have the combos to really back it up, so you're possibly going to have to fall back on SIGs that can't kill. That sucks. Scarlet, she can kill. Stats are, I guess, okay. I just find Hammer not really flattering with Lance, and she is quite outdated, so I think it's easy to kind of work around this character sometimes. Moving into B tier, the only one I want to really point out is Barraza. Maybe you could argue he deserves a little more love, but I think in ones, he's a very rough pick right now. You have to be an absolute beast with Axe, and you just have to know when to place his signatures, and he might feel very good to play, and he might seem super hard to deal with. But at the end of the day, I think he's going to be at a big disadvantage with blasters being nerfed as hard as they were. A tier, again, you're entering kind of, all right, these characters, I can definitely see people busting them out, but also I think that there might be better options. There might be some drawbacks on these guys. Ones that stick out to me would probably be Sentinel. I think Sentinel even could maybe be placed higher. His SIGs are super good, dude. His SIGs are good. His stats are good. No one just wants to really play him. I think people see Hammer right now, and they're just like, I don't really want to touch this weapon at all. Also, Bodvar. I think Bodvar maybe could go a little higher. And Ragnar, Lin Fei, maybe there's some arguments there. And the South Americans, dude, if you're a South American player watching this right now and you see Queen Nai, I know you're already going to be putting her in the top 10, but listen, I'm just a stupid American. I'm putting her in A tier. I think Queen Nai is pretty strong, but I don't think she's built like that. All right, I'll just say it. In the S tier, it's pretty stacked. There's a lot of good choices right now. What can I say? Looking at it, Lucian is in here, and I have Lucian and even Diana in here, not for blasters, okay? It's for their other weapon. You look at Lucian, I think his Katars are one of the best, if not the best in the game. Loki does exist now. We'll talk about him. But what you can do with the Katars are really nice. The stats are also good. Same with Diana. You can end up getting 7 speed, or if you want to keep the dex, you could keep the dex. But Delight and Sig is good on Bow. Bow in general, pretty good. And yeah, just the whole Sig kit. There's some nice things you can do with the reason stuff. But at the end of the day, probably going to be better playing something else, but I do want to mention them. Oh yeah, I'll just throw it in there. Volkov might be a surprise. This guy is like Zariel in 1v1s in my opinion. Dude, he has ridiculous SIGs, and I was actually kind of hyped seeing Luna play this in Grand of Autumns. If you haven't seen that, I would watch it. I think he might have taken one game, but still, I like the idea, and I hope he doesn't throw this character away, because it would be cool to see more Volkov gameplay. Now in the top 10, we have Ulgrim, Hitori, Taros, Caspian, Dusk, Wushong, Red Raptor, Tezka, Kaya, and Mirage. Also, I want to say this. Okay, you might be looking at this, and you might not think this is correct at all. So be it, dude. Maybe it's an L. It's really hard to order characters in 1v1 compared to 2v2s, I think, because at least in North America, we're sheeple half the time. We just know, oh, Zariel is broken. Okay, everyone come together and just play Devil Jin for the rest of time until the next patch, of course. But Mirage is up there. Call it Sandstorm effect, right? Where he plays Legend. Oh, this Legend's so good. Nuh-uh, this Legend's just, it's Sandstorm. He has access to some of the most broken Legends in the game. Not that he hasn't won Legends with other stuff, but Mirage, even with the nerfs, is so good. And Kaya, dude, I know there's some really good Kaya players, but Kaya is still super strong as well. Tezca number 3, Red Raptor number 4. Yeah, I mean, Battle Boots, again, I think are very good. The SIGs that these characters have are just unholy. That's kind of a trend. Caspian sneaking up there. I think Caspian's still an absolute bomb. This guy is crazy when it comes to the SIGs, and it's like, okay, I don't want to play Gauntlets here, but you might not want to play Gauntlets, but you sure want to play Gauntlet side SIG because you're going to be dying in like light orange half the time when you get hit by it. Same story with Dusk. People might not like him in the number 6 spot, but I feel like that's honestly a fair range. He's only gotten buffed. His weapons are like peaking right now, right? I don't know if he's going to get better from here. It might be a core situation where nobody played core when core was at his peak. And then he got nerfed, and now look where he's at, dude. If you've ever thought about playing Dusk, now is the time. I don't know if he's ever going to be this good again. But yeah, that's enough about Dusk. It's just, I have seen this before with a Legend who's super good. No one plays him. And it's, I mean, hey, honestly, I'm kind of cool with it. But you just heard that from me, you know, between me and you, right? I'm cool if nobody plays Dusk, right? I saw Stingray play it once. I hope I never have to face Stingray's Dusk. I hope I have to never face anyone with Dusk. Hitori is possibly another shocker. Could be Java. I was talking about Sword earlier and how maybe Java's skill with Sword is kind of influencing my position of it. But Hitori's got great stats for 1v1. If you are wanting to kind of run at your opponent and just go crazy, this is a great character to do it with. And I think, you know, having access to like delay and sig on Sword is super strong. Spear, I talked about it, really easy reads. The sig hit overall is pretty nice. There's nothing that stands out like, oh my gosh, this kills absurdly early. But at the end of the day, very well-rounded as a character. All right, and finally, if I were to place Loki, I just put him at the best character in the game. He's not going to be playable until next year's Winters. Honestly, I think it's going to take multiple patches for them to get the balance of this guy right. His signatures are just so broken. The stats are okay, but we've seen how good high dex Katars can be. And if that ever comes back, this guy is going to be far and away the best character in the game. It just kind of depends on, of course, multiple factors. But he has championship winning ability for sure. But that does it for the tier list. If you did like it, make sure to like it. If you didn't like it, comment, right? Don't dislike the video, right? No. Don't dislike. Just comment. Tell me why. What did you think was bad about it, right? What did you think, you know, why is Hitori belonging in C tier? Why is Core belonging in the top 5? You know, tell me. Let me know. But thank you for watching either way, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.